So you're thinking about moving to San Marcos, California, but you don't even know how much it's going to cost. The housing, the renting, or the food, the utilities, all of it. You got to know that before you pick up your family and move to San Marcos. And we're getting after that right now. What's up, amazing people? I am LeFore here with the Mortgage Liz team located out of San Diego, California. And if this is the first time to my channel and you're looking to learn everything you got to know about what it's like to eat, live, sleep, and play here in San Diego, then this is the channel for you. And today we're talking about San Marcos. You definitely want to click that subscribe button, tap that little bell so you're reminded every single time we release a new video. Because honestly, we do it every single week. And honestly, my team and I are receiving phone calls every single day with people just like you thinking about making that move to somewhere in San Diego or San Marcos. Make sure that you give us a call, send us a text, or an email, whatever is easiest for you. You definitely want to reach out to us and give us a call so we can have your back when moving to San Marcos. Now, let's get after that true cost of living of what you got to know before you move to San Marcos. Okay, so first off, you got to know where San Marcos is. Okay, so look, San Marcos is actually located in northern San Diego, California. So kind of think like you split San Diego up in half, and then you got the southern area where you're looking at like Chula Vista, Mira Mesa, that area, Rancho Bernardo, kind of going downward in San Diego on the 15. That's where you're going to be finding those cities. But then you kind of hit Escondido, and Escondido North, that's what we call North San Diego. So that's where you're going to find San Marcos. San Marcos is actually located kind of in the middle of a couple different cities. So Carlsbad, Vista, Escondido, and kind of the back side of Fallbrook as well. So that's kind of based off the 15. Now let's take it to the map so you can see exactly where San Marcos is located. So when we start looking at kind of where San Marcos is located, you're going to end up finding it's kind of in the middle of a couple different cities. So first off, it's right over here on Escondido, on the corner of it, right before you get onto the 78. And actually, this is where the connector right on the 78, where it starts having you now be in the city zoning of San Marcos. However, if you go right over here, you'll end up seeing that this 15 freeway, that takes you all the way up to kind of like Riverside County and Murrieta, Menifee, that area. You'll find that as you get closer, you end up being right here into Fallbrook. So right here, we're still kind of in city lines for Escondido. This takes us always still into Escondido, and then up here we're going to start hitting Fallbrook. But when we move back just a little bit, you'll end up seeing that right in here is kind of like that little area where Country Club is, where we fall in the line of Escondido and San Marcos. So depending on how close you are, right over here will end up determining whether you're in Escondido lines or San Marcos lines. And we'll learn just a little bit later about why you want to be in the San Marcos lines. As we keep going, you'll notice that San Marcos in general is a pretty large city in comparison to like neighboring cities, including like Escondido, which is right over here, and then moving to the right over here where you'll find Encinitas, Carlsbad, Oceanside, and then right in here where you're going to end up finding Vista. And then kind of going up this way and further up sideways of Valley Center. So you are going to end up finding that San Marcos in general is a pretty large city in comparison to one specifically like Escondido. The population in Escondido is about 150,000. However, the population in San Marcos is a bit lower, closer to about 90,000 people. And we'll talk a little bit more about those details and how and why they actually really matter when we're looking at like San Marcos and living in San Marcos specifically. So now that we know where San Marcos is actually located in North San Diego, now let's talk about more about the actual cost of what it's going to take for you to live in San Marcos. In general, you are going to find that San Marcos, California is actually a little bit more expensive when it comes to just living in San Marcos. So that a lot has to do with kind of like the school districts that you're going to end up finding in San Marcos because they are really highly rated in comparison to like its neighboring cities, whether it's in Escondido, Vista. Carlsbad has some good school districts as well, but when you hit into Carlsbad, you're talking about a completely different cost of living. So you want to make sure that you're aware that in San Marcos right now, in general, when it comes to our sales prices, of course, they have been going up due to the last 2020 comparison to right now in 2021. You will actually end up finding that home prices are still significantly increasing. So talking a little bit more as to kind of comparing it to like San Diego, also in general to California, San Diego right now for the average home price, you're looking at about $645,300. But in California, California's home prices on average are actually less than San Diego and actually even less than San Marcos. So when you look at San Marcos, you will find it is in general higher than San Diego and higher than California. So back in 2019, average home prices were about $597,800. Since then, they have definitely been going up with regards to appreciation at 4.9% just in San Marcos. But then we start looking at what's been happening since 2020 to 2021, and that's where you're going to see that the home prices are actually even significantly higher than that amount at $660,000 for the average home price here in San Marcos. So in comparison to, like we said, in San Diego at $645,300, the average home in San Marcos is going to be a little bit more expensive at that $660,000 price. So in talking about the home values within San Marcos, you also want to know that there's about 6 different neighborhoods that you're going to end up finding in general when it comes to San Marcos. Right now, there's 237 homes that are currently for sale, ranging in price from $49,000, yes, $49,000, all the way up to $5.3 million. So let's touch on that $49,000 amount. So in San Marcos, they actually also do have a lot of manufactured home communities where you do or do not own the land. And that's actually where that amount for the $49,000 comes in. That also is affiliated to the total amount of homes that are currently for sale right now at the 237. The average home right now, though, you are going to end up finding that it's for sale for about $601,000, but they end up actually closing on the home sale at about $660,000. So while the appreciation has been going up about 4.9% since the 2020 pandemic, still living in it, 2021, we are showing increases in home prices at 6.9% appreciation on your home value. And that's where that home price at $660,000 comes in, because that's more the recent average that you're going to end up finding in the last 12 months. So let's talk about how the home prices have been increasing. So we were talking about 2019, and then we're talking about 2020. So again, they have been steadily increasing, and then here we are in 2021. Again, looking at that appreciation at the 6.5% appreciation here based off of February 2021. So it's really important to know that right now, in general, home prices are going up. However, you want to make sure that when you are buying your home, you can also, of course, afford the monthly payment, not just buying your home and then forgetting that the monthly payment is definitely going to be a bit higher when it comes to San Marcos. In general, though, you, of course, are not going to really find a lot of homes when it comes to San Marcos at that $660,000 price. A lot of the homes in San Marcos kind of start at that $650,000 price, and they do actually end up going into the $700,000 to the middle $700,000, $800,000 price range, especially when you're trying to get into some of the schools and the better schools that are actually in San Marcos. And let's just kind of touch on that, is that all the schools in San Marcos are actually rated really well. So while we are technically in a seller's market right now, while a home is actually listed for sale, and then the difference to what it's actually selling for is about 1.22% higher in comparison. So the list price is never going to be technically the final sales price. That's all based off of realtor.org. Also Zillow, and then also bestplaces.net when I have been comparing all of the different details. The other thing that you want to know is that the homes overall do not actually sit on the market for a very long time. You will find from the point that you're actually putting your home on the market to the very end when you finally get your keys or you're giving your keys away to that new buyer, it's about 42 days right now. So while somebody can actually sell your property to the new home buyer here within a couple of days or maybe even a couple of minutes, honestly, because of this market, you're still going to find that you're going to have to go through that 30, 45-day process. While some lenders can actually close under 30 days, you will find in some cases that lenders overall, based off of realtor.org, they're closing in about 42 days. Also keep in mind that there are also some cash buyers that are actually coming in, and of course investors that come in and close even faster, 5-10 days as well. So now let's compare the amount of days that a home is actually on the market in comparison to 2019, 2020, now 2021. So back in 2019, the homes actually stood on the market for a bit longer. And we're talking on an average of 60 days. When in comparison to May 2020, homes were actually staying on the market and then getting sold within 50 days. Remember now in 2021, as of February 2021, we're looking at homes actually starting and selling within 42 days. So definitely, while the home prices have been going up, the amount of days that a home is actually on the market is quite a bit less. Okay, so now that we know all about home prices and what's happening in San Marcos, California, now let's talk about rent. Let's assume that you're not ready to buy your new home in San Marcos. You want to rent in San Marcos and then determine whether that's going to be your next move. So in San Marcos, you're going to end up finding that the average person, 38.6% of the population in San Marcos is actually renting in San Marcos. When in comparison to like the homes that are actually renting right now for a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom, you will end up finding that the rent for San Marcos, of course, is going to be higher. We've talked about the cost of living when it comes to San Marcos. So in San Marcos, for a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom, let's compare it to like general for like San Diego County. So in San Marcos, an average 3-bedroom is actually going to go for about $2,525, where in comparison to a 4-bedroom is going to go for $3,090. Now let's compare that to San Diego. In San Diego, at a 3-bedroom is actually at $3,019, whereas the 4-bedroom is going to be looking at $37,01. So that's kind of where you see that with the renting overall in San Diego, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. In the flip side, where the cost of living is actually be more expensive in San Marcos. So it's a little kind of different than what we would typically expect, because we are seeing that the cost of living in general for San Marcos is a bit more expensive. So we'd anticipate that also the renting for 3-bedrooms and 4-bedrooms would also be just as expensive. But while 38.6% of the population in San Marcos is actually renting, you'll actually only find about 1.3% that's actually even available for rent. So what does that even mean? Well, once you're in San Marcos, odds are you're probably not going to leave San Marcos, and it has a lot to do with those schools. Because in San Marcos, you got to make sure that you have a San Marcos address to make sure that you're eligible to go to a San Marcos school. Next on our list is going to be the utilities here in San Marcos. So look, San Marcos, you're actually going to end up finding that the weather overall is about 10 degrees cooler than like Escondido or its neighboring cities like Vista, because in those cities, you're going to end up finding that the utilities are a bit more expensive. Whereas in San Marcos, yes, you're typically going to have solar, and of course, you're going to have San Diego Gas and Electric that's going to be connected to the city of San Marcos. But the city of San Marcos is actually where you're going to pay your garbage and your water bill. So when we start breaking those things down, you will end up finding that the utilities overall are a little less expensive. So let's think about the garbage and the water in itself. So on average, I'm actually finding that with my clients in San Marcos, they're actually paying for about $100 to $120 when it comes to their garbage and their water bill. Depending on whether they have a pool in the backyard, it's kind of the difference whether their water bill is a little bit more expensive. Also, the difference that you're going to end up finding is that the San Diego Gas and Electric, a lot of homes in San Marcos, because a lot of them are actually newer, and there's been a lot of new developments in San Marcos, is that a lot of the homes actually came with solar. And so therefore that the utilities that are actually paid out, like the gas and electric, are typically either a wash or maybe just a little bit of an amount. In general, you're going to end up finding that the gas and electric bill, because they are together, are about $200. Then, of course, if you got that solar, it's probably going to end up wiping it out. You want to make sure that when it comes to solar, that the solar is sufficient enough for your house. Too many times am I finding clients that get solar or that are kind of grandfathered into a solar contract, and that solar contract is not enough for their house, meaning that they still end up having an extra bill even though they got solar on their house. And so you want to make sure that the solar that you're getting, number one, is good. Number two is that if it's going to be on your home, that you're going to have enough to be able to cover your utilities. And if that's not the case, then you may end up upgrading with a new solar system just to be able to cover the sunshine that we get here in San Diego. So just to give you a little bit more details as to kind of what is the weather that you're going to end up expecting, along with the utilities, kind of all go together, is that in San Marcos, it's very similar to what it is in San Diego. So we don't see a lot of rain in San Marcos. On average, we're actually looking at about 14 inches of rain for the entire year, where in comparison to the national average is about 38 inches, which is definitely not what you're going to see here in San Diego. You are definitely going to see a whole bunch of sunshine in San Marcos, of course, at 265 days of sunshine through the course of the entire year. In San Marcos, we don't have any snow, so you can definitely have to take a little drive up to Big Bear to be able to get some of that snow. Then again, Big Bear is actually only about 30 minutes away, along with the beaches, which is probably closer to like 15 to 20 minutes away. So of course, when it comes to the sunshine here in San Marcos, you're going to end up getting a lot of it. But if you want to get a little bit of the diverse extra weather or the extra seasons, then maybe you're going to have to go up to Big Bear to get some of that snow. Or if you want to get some of the desert, you definitely want to maybe travel over to Valley Center, so that way you can get a little bit more of the land. So now let's talk about transportation. That's number 3. So in transportation, you're going to end up finding that number 1, you're definitely going to need a car. In San Diego in general, you're going to find that over 80% of the population here in San Diego has a car. And so odds are that you're not going to be able to kind of walk or take your bike to be able to get to work. A lot of San Marcos does actually work in San Marcos, or actually closer to like the 15 freeway, where you're going to end up finding a lot of the other population that does actually work off the 15. And in some cases, you'll end up finding that families that live in San Marcos also work in Riverside County, so such as Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, things like that. It just really depends on kind of where your work is actually located. So based off of the census in 2019, you're going to end up finding that the population here in San Marcos is about 95,355 people. Of course, since 2019, it's about 2 years ago. So of course, the population in general is going to be growing. When it comes to the gas prices, you're going to end up finding that the gas prices, of course, are on the higher end. In general, for San Diego County, you're going to end up finding that they're about $2.89 all the way up to about $3.59. However, when you look at San Marcos right now, you're going to end up finding that the $3.53, so $3.53, is kind of like the starting point. And then you end up going to about $4 and $4.09 when it comes to gas prices. In general, because of the population being so big, you will end up finding that it's very similar to size-wise like Escondido. So you will find that a lot of the population does actually have a gas station really close to where they're living. And so with that, they're kind of always competing for your business. In some cases, you'll end up finding the gas prices may be a little bit less expensive in comparison to the whole $4.09. When it comes to the national average prices of gas, you're going to end up finding that it's closer to about $2.89. So when it comes to San Marcos, of course, that's going to be a bit more expensive. Then the other detail that you want to be aware of is that you also got to fill up your tank, right? Now that we're also all opening up and now we can get out a lot more, you're going to end up finding that gas overall, you're going to end up filling it up most likely every single week. So kind of give it to you in my perspective is that my gas, as I fill it up every single week, when it comes to my Yukon, I do end up spending about $90 to $95 right now with gas prices on average between $3.53 all the way up to about $4. And then with that, you're going to end up finding that the total gas gallon tank that I have, about 26 to 27 gallons, it's going to be pretty expensive. So you just want to make sure that you're aware as to additionally adding that into your cost of living when you're thinking about moving to San Marcos. So on to number 4, and that's going to be the cost of food. So look, in general, when it comes to the cost of food, you're going to end up finding that the average person ends up having a cost of about $15 for food. So that's not really including kind of like myself and my family. When I think about $15, when I was looking this up, this detail at $15, it's just honestly not even realistic. Here in my family, we end up typically having like appetizers, and then we have drinks, and then there's like the strawberry lemonade when it comes to my kids. So overall, you do end up finding that $15 isn't realistic. So we typically end up walking out of the restaurant with about $100 to $150 bill. That just ends up coming in with the fact that my daughters are not growing up. They don't really eat off the kids menu anymore. And because they don't, the cost of food is a little bit more expensive. At the $15 range, though, you are going to end up finding that it's closer to kind of like the mom and pop shop or the drive-through that you're going to end up finding that $15 at. However, in San Marcos, there is a lot of different places that you're going to end up trying out with their food. They also have some really good sushi places called Sushi Huku. That's one of my absolute favorite places. They also used to have this other place that was called Creamistry. That was like my all-time favorite, which is no longer located in San Marcos. Unfortunately, they closed down. So places like that are kind of like my all-time favorites. You definitely want to be able to have that inside of your budget because you're going to end up, of course, spending money when it comes to going out to eat. Don't really anticipate the national average or the average at the $15. While that is kind of pretty customary, we all do typically have that extra appetizer, and it does end up running a little bit more expensive, kind of closer to like that $20, $25 range, as for me and my family anyways, with me, my husband, and my 2 little girls. Other thing that you want to make sure that you're aware of is that depending on where you go to get food will depend on how good that place is. So you definitely want to check the reviews, go to Yelp, go to Google, make sure that where you're going, where you're spending your money is definitely worth it. Because I got to tell you, not every single restaurant is amazing. And with that, you will end up finding that the cost of food overall, when it comes to closer to like Carlsbad, you will end up finding that the prices for food, prices for your meals will be a little bit more expensive. I have found that in my experience that closer to I go to like Carlsbad, my food ends up being a little bit more expensive. Vice versa, if I go closer to kind of like Vista and San Marcos, I do end up finding that my food is not as expensive. So just kind of food for thought as you're thinking about where to live or kind of whether that food is even kind of important when it comes to your cost of living when you're deciding to move to San Marcos. All right, so now let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, taxes. So that's number 5. So on taxes, you're going to end up finding, of course, we pay the sunshine tax. So look, you're going to end up finding that you pay a bit of taxes here when it comes to San Marcos and in general when it comes to San Diego and especially when it comes to California. While our average unemployment is actually down in comparison to the U.S. average, which is right now at 3.7%, unemployment for us is at 3.5%. So that kind of has something to do when it comes to our property taxes and our sales tax as well. So in general, when it comes to sales tax, you're going to find that sales tax here in San Diego is going to be at 7.8% in comparison to the national average at 7.3%. Now you start comparing property taxes. So look, property taxes in general, when it comes to San Diego County, you will find that they are about a 1.25%. That's actually the standard amount that we end up estimating them here for just a lending company in general. And the reason for that is you want to make sure that you have enough money inside of your escrow account, which is actually where you kind of have like that savings account, saving up your taxes and your insurance to make sure that when we do pay out the money for your taxes and your insurance out of the escrow account, that you have enough money to do so. And so while we do definitely check up the property taxes, you will find that the average amount that you will anticipate in taxes is about 1.25%. In some cases, you will find that you're going to end up paying a bit more in taxes, and that has a lot to do with the Melrose. In San Marcos, a lot of the homes were actually redeveloped or developed, and so therefore there's additional taxes, special assessments on the properties such as Melrose. And so while the average home price and average home taxes are going to be closer to that 1.25%, you'll end up finding that the property taxes are going to be a bit more expensive just because you got to add those additional assessments. And depending on when your home was built will depend on how much extra assessments you will end up paying for. So just kind of give you my perspective is that my home was built in 2007 and I am paying a Melrose. And so Melrose for me is about $3,700. So $3,700 for my property taxes, it gives me a total percentage at about 1.3%. And my home is also in San Diego County. So you want to make sure that you run those calculations, you run the actual payment that you're going to end up paying for, especially when you look at the property taxes. Other thing that you got to be aware of when it comes to like the taxes overall is the HOA. So HOA is not technically the same as taxes, but it is something that is very customary and very common in San Marcos. So you are going to end up having to anticipate that additional bill onto your home. When it comes to a lot of the San Marcos homes, you will find that you end up paying additional HOA dues, regardless of whether the home was built in 07 or 05. I've even found the same HOA dues as like $80 to $90. Even homes that were built in 2000. So you want to make sure that you're aware of additional expenses that you're going to end up paying for when you do end up finding that first home in San Marcos. So now let's go back to taxes. So income tax rating you're going to end up finding in San Marcos is at 9.3% in comparison to the national average of 4.6%. So again, sunshine tax, that's what we got to pay for here in San Diego. So while taxes is so important and very interesting, you want to make sure that in general, San Marcos is a great place to live. So you want to make sure that maybe it's the northern part of San Marcos. Maybe it's the border of San Marcos and Escondido, or maybe it's the border of San Marcos and Fallbrook that finds your interest. You just want to make sure that you give us a call when you find your San Marcos home. So give us a call, send us a text or an email, whatever is easiest for you. Because definitely we got your back when moving to San Marcos or San Diego, wherever it is that you're moving. And don't forget, on this channel, we release videos every single week. So make sure you click that subscribe button, tap that little bell so you're reminded every single time we release a new video. Because honestly, we do it every single week. And so the videos that are coming up on your screen are talking about what it's like to eat, live, sleep, and play here in San Diego. So you definitely want to click on those just to make sure that you know exactly where you're going to be at the end of the day when it comes to San Diego. And until next time, see you later.